There was a man in Florence who destroyed his rivals without ever lifting a hand against them. He simply waited. He stayed quiet, and he let them talk themselves into ruin while he said nothing at all. By the time they realized what was happening, he was already the only one left standing. That man studied power more closely than almost anyone in history, and the thing he understood, the thing most people never learn in an entire lifetime, is that reacting is how you lose. Explaining is how you weaken yourself, and silence is the only weapon that never runs out of ammunition. You have been trained your whole life to believe the opposite. You were told that if someone accuses you, you defend yourself. If someone doubts you, you prove them wrong. If someone disrespects you, you respond immediately or you look weak. And so you have spent years handing out your energy to people who never deserved a second of it. Every argument you won still cost you something. Every explanation you gave still drained you. Every time you reacted, you were telling the world exactly where your buttons are. And the world remembered. Machiavelli spent his life inside the courts of men who rose and fell in a matter of months. And he noticed something almost nobody else was writing down. The men who lasted were never the loudest in the room. They were the ones who knew when to disappear, when to stay silent, when to let their enemies exhaust themselves against nothing. He watched princes fall, not because their armies were weak, but because their tempers were. A single insult could send a man into a rage that cost him allies, resources, and eventually his throne. While the men who learned to absorb an insult without ever showing it, kept climbing long after their rivals had burned themselves out. Today, you are going to learn the same 7 laws that kept those men in power while everyone around them collapsed trying to prove a point. None of these ideas require you to become someone else. They simply require you to stop giving away the one resource that was always meant to stay yours. And by the end of this, you will understand why the most dangerous person in any room is usually the quietest one. Consider how differently history remembers the men who mastered this compared to the men who did not. The ones who reacted to every insult are barely footnotes, remembered mostly for the scandals that consumed them, while the ones who stayed silent, who let their enemies talk themselves into irrelevance, are the ones whose names survived centuries. Power was never about being right in every argument. It was about deciding which arguments were even worth having in the first place. And most people never make that decision consciously. They simply react to whatever is placed in front of them, which means anyone who understands this can pull their strings without them ever realizing it. There is also a quieter reason this matters more now than it ever did in Machiavelli's time. In his era, provocation traveled slowly. A rumor took weeks to spread across a city. An insult took time to even reach your ears. Today, provocation arrives instantly and constantly. A single notification can pull your attention away 100 times a day, which means the skill of not reacting, the skill of staying silent, the skill of choosing where your energy goes, is more valuable now than at any point in human history, because the demands on your attention have never been louder, and the reward for staying quiet has never been greater. Law number 1. Your attention is the only currency that never gets printed twice. Spend it wisely. Picture a man running a small business. Every single day, someone leaves a nasty comment on his page, calls his product overpriced, calls him a scammer, and every single day he responds. He types out long paragraphs defending his pricing. He screenshots the comment and shows his friends how unfair it is. He loses an hour of his day to a stranger who will forget the interaction by tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, his competitor down the street never responds to a single negative comment. Not because he does not see them, but because he has already decided those comments are not an investment worth making. And 6 months later, the competitor has doubled his revenue while the first man is still arguing with strangers on the internet. This is the part almost nobody tells you. Attention is not free. Every time you give it away, you are making a trade. You are trading your focus, your peace, your mental bandwidth for absolutely nothing in return. And the people who understand power instinctively know this. They ask one question before they give anyone their time. Does this deserve my attention? And if the answer is no, They move on without a single word of explanation. They do not owe anyone that explanation, and neither do you. Think about the people in your own life who always seem to have a crisis, who always need something from you, who somehow drain you every single time you speak to them. Now ask yourself honestly, what have they given you back? If the answer is nothing, you already know what needs to change, and the change is not dramatic. It is not a confrontation. It is simply this. You stop feeding attention to things that do not deserve it, and the moment you do that, you will feel power return to you almost immediately. There is a reason this is law number 1, and not somewhere in the middle. Everything else you are about to learn depends on this single shift. You cannot practice silence, withdrawal, or indifference. If you are still handing your attention to anyone who demands it, protecting your attention is the foundation every other law is built on top of. There is a simple test you can run on yourself to see how far this has already gone. Think back over the last week and count how many times you gave your full focus to something that ended up meaning nothing by the next day. An argument online, a comment from someone you barely know, a piece of gossip that had nothing to do with your actual life. Most people are shocked when they actually count, because the leaks are so small individually that they never notice how much they add up to. A few minutes here, a few minutes there, and by the end of the week, an entire day of focus has quietly disappeared into things that never deserved it in the first place. Law number 2. Silence says what words never could. There is a strange belief that silence means you have lost, that if you do not respond, you are somehow admitting defeat. But think about the last time someone tried to provoke you and you said absolutely nothing back. What happened? They usually tried again and again, because your silence unsettled them more than any comeback ever would have. Silence forces the other person to sit with uncertainty, and uncertainty is far more uncomfortable than confrontation. Consider a woman who discovers a close friend has been talking behind her back. The old instinct is to confront her, to demand answers, to explain her side of the story until the friend admits she was wrong. But the moment she does that, she has handed her friend exactly what she wanted. Proof that the rumor landed. Proof that it mattered. Instead, imagine she simply says nothing. She carries on as if she never heard a word. She is polite, she is pleasant, and there is nothing to grab onto. No anger to point at, no defensiveness to mock. Just a wall of complete indifference. And that wall is far more disorienting than any argument could ever be, because now the friend is left wondering if she even knows, if it even mattered, if she has any power over her at all. And the answer she eventually arrives at is no. Machiavelli watched rulers destroy their own credibility by responding to every rumor, every accusation, every whisper against them. Because the moment you respond, you confirm that the accusation was worth acknowledging. Silence does the opposite. It tells the world you are simply above the noise, and the less you say, the more weight your words carry when you finally choose to use them. A man who speaks rarely is studied closely every time he opens his mouth, while a man who reacts to everything is eventually tuned out entirely, even when he says something that actually matters. There is a common fear that keeps people from practicing this. The fear that silence will be mistaken for guilt, that if they do not defend themselves publicly, people will assume the accusation must be true. But consider how often the opposite actually happens. The people who protest the loudest, who defend themselves the most aggressively, are often the ones who look the most suspicious, while the ones who simply carry on with quiet confidence tend to be believed by default. Because panic reads as guilt, and calm reads as innocence, even when neither one is actually proof of anything. Law number 3, disappear on your terms, never on theirs. There is a difference between withdrawing completely and withdrawing strategically, and most people confuse the two. Complete withdrawal is cutting everyone off, becoming unreachable, vanishing entirely, and while that might feel powerful for a moment, it usually just makes you irrelevant. Strategic withdrawal is something else entirely. It is staying present, but making your presence unpredictable. It is showing up when it benefits you and pulling back when it does not. And the effect this has on people is almost impossible to fake.
Think of a manager who used to say yes to every meeting request. Every last-minute favor, every extra task dropped on his desk without warning. People stopped asking if he was free. They simply assumed he was, because he had trained them to expect it. One quarter he changed nothing about his workload, but changed how he responded. Some requests he answered within the hour. Others he let sit for a day. Some he simply declined without a lengthy reason. Nothing hostile, nothing dramatic, just no longer automatic. Within a few months, the same colleagues who once dumped work on his desk without a second thought started asking if he had time first, started treating his calendar like something worth respecting. Not because he demanded it, but because he stopped confirming that he would always say yes. This is not manipulation for the sake of games. This is simply recognizing a basic truth. Anything unlimited loses its value, and anything scarce becomes valuable almost automatically. Your presence, your time, your energy. They are only powerful when they are not guaranteed. The moment people can predict you completely, they stop working to keep you, and the moment they cannot, you become something worth paying attention to again. Law number 4, the mind cannot survive without an explanation. So take the explanation away. Every person who tries to provoke you is secretly testing a theory about themselves. They want to know if they still have the power to affect you, and when that test fails, when nothing lands, when you simply do not move, something far deeper than frustration starts to happen. They begin questioning their own significance because if they cannot even get a reaction out of you, what does that say about how much they actually matter to you at all? Imagine a man who spent months trying to sabotage a colleague at work, spreading small comments here and there, hoping to provoke a reaction he could use against her. She never gave him one. She never confronted him, never explained herself, never even acknowledged that she noticed. And within a few months, he was the one who looked unstable, because every attempt he made only proved to him how little he actually controlled. While she had already moved on entirely, his own confidence became the casualty. Not because she attacked him, but because she showed him, without a single word, that he simply did not have the influence over her he assumed he had. This is the quiet cruelty of ignoring someone completely. It does not just deny them a reaction, it denies them the confirmation that they still matter. And losing that confirmation breaks something in a person far more than any argument ever could. The ones who understand this never waste time proving anyone wrong. They simply let the silence do what 1,000 arguments never could. Law number 5, not everyone deserves the same silence. Know who you are erasing and why. There are 3 kinds of people worth this kind of discipline, and each one requires a different flavor of distance. The first are the ones actively working against you, not people who disagree with you, but people quietly undermining you while smiling to your face. Picture a business partner who agrees to every plan in meetings but has been quietly courting your biggest client behind your back. The instinct is to confront him publicly, to expose the betrayal, to make sure everyone knows what he did. But the more powerful move is simply to keep building while he is still busy plotting. Within a year, the partner is still trying to figure out how to undercut a company that has already outgrown his reach. Exposing him would have given him a stage. Ignoring him left him with nothing to stand on at all. The second are the critics who create nothing themselves but have endless opinions about everyone who is actually building something. Think of a small creator who posts her first video and immediately receives a long comment tearing apart everything from her voice to her editing, from someone whose own channel has never posted a single video. She used to reply to comments like this, trying to explain her choices, trying to win the commenter over. Now she does not respond at all. And something interesting happens. The commenter keeps coming back, keeps posting longer comments, keeps trying harder to get a reaction because he needs an audience to feel relevant. And the moment she stopped being that audience, his opinions lost their entire purpose. The third are the hardest to spot because they do not look like enemies at all. They look like friends. Picture a friend who calls every single week with a new crisis, a new falling out, a new emergency that only you can help with. You give hours of advice, you check in constantly, you carry pieces of her stress home with you and notice something. The crisis never actually ends because she was never looking for a solution. She was looking for attention, and you were the source. The moment you start setting boundaries around how much of yourself you give her, Either she finds a way to solve her own problems, or she finds someone else to drain. Either outcome protects you, and protecting your energy from people like this is not selfish. It is the only way you have anything left to give to the people who actually deserve it. Law number 6. Build a version of yourself that nothing outside of you can touch. The reason people are able to control you is rarely because they are powerful. It is because you have not identified your own weak points yet. Think about what actually gets under your skin. Being called lazy, being misunderstood, being disrespected in front of others. Whatever it is, that is the exact button people will press when they want a reaction out of you. And most people never realize they are being played this easily. Machiavelli watched countless powerful men fall apart, not because someone outfought them, but because someone learned exactly what made them angry and pulled that thread until they unraveled in public. The ones who survived were the ones who built something the others could not. Indifference, not coldness, not numbness, but a deep internal security that made outside opinions almost irrelevant. Picture a woman who used to spiral every time someone questioned her work. She would explain herself for 20 minutes over a single comment. Over time, she made a decision. She started asking herself one question whenever criticism came her way. Does this person actually know what they are talking about? And if the answer was no, she simply let it pass through her without absorbing it. Nothing about her work changed, but everything about how untouchable she felt did. And people notice that shift immediately because you cannot manipulate someone who refuses to hand you the rope. This kind of armor does not build itself overnight. It is built the same way any strength is built. By practicing it in small moments long before you need it in large ones, the first few times someone tests you and you do not react, it will feel unnatural, almost uncomfortable. But each time you choose stillness over reaction, the armor gets a little thicker, and eventually staying calm stops being an effort and simply becomes who you are. Start with the smallest provocations, the comment that would have normally ruined your afternoon, the offhand remark from a coworker, the message from someone who always seems to know exactly what to say to unsettle you. Practice letting those small moments pass through you without a reaction, because the skill you build handling the small provocations is the exact same skill that will carry you through the large ones. Nobody builds indifference by starting with the hardest situation first. They build it one small moment at a time until the large situations no longer feel large at all. Law number 7. The most powerful move you will ever make is often no move at all. There is a strange kind of ascension that happens when you stop fighting every battle handed to you. Most people believe power comes from constant motion, constant defending, constant proving. But some of the most powerful outcomes in history happen because someone simply refused to engage. They let the situation destroy itself while they conserved their energy for something that actually mattered. Think of someone spreading a lie about you. The panicked response is to correct it everywhere, to defend your name to anyone who will listen. But that response often makes the lie feel more significant than it ever was. The person who does nothing, who keeps living with the same integrity as before, who keeps producing results while the rumor slowly runs out of oxygen, that person usually comes out untouched because the truth eventually reveals itself. And it reveals itself far more convincingly when you are not the one desperately trying to prove it. Consider one more scenario. A competitor begins copying everything you do, your ideas, your style, even your language. The instinct is to call it out publicly, to make sure everyone knows who did it first. But the moment you do that, you have made him relevant. You have tied your name to his in a conversation you never needed to have. The sharper move is silence. You keep creating. You keep moving faster than he can copy. And within time, the difference between the original and the imitation becomes obvious to anyone paying attention, without you ever having to say a single word about it. This is calculated in action, and it is not laziness. It is one of the sharpest strategic tools a person can develop. Because while everyone else is spending their energy on reactions, explanations, and proving themselves to people who were never going to be convinced anyway, you are quietly building something they cannot compete with. And by the time they notice, the distance between you and them is already too wide to close.
These 7 laws are not tricks you use once and forget. They are a complete shift in how you move through the world. Guard your attention like it is the only resource you cannot replace. Let silence carry the weight your words used to carry. Withdraw on your own terms so your presence stays valuable. Understand that an unanswered question is more powerful than any explanation you could give. Know exactly who deserves your energy and who does not. Build an inner world. Nothing outside of you can shake. And remember that sometimes the strongest move you can make is choosing not to move at all. None of this happens overnight, and it is not supposed to. The first time you stay silent when everything in you wants to react, it will feel like restraint, like holding your breath. But the 10th time, the 50th time, it stops feeling like restraint at all. It simply becomes the way you move through the world, and the people around you will notice long before you do. They will notice that you no longer take the bait, that you no longer explain yourself to people who never earned an explanation, that you no longer spend your energy trying to win arguments with people who are never going to change their minds anyway. The next time someone tries to pull a reaction out of you, notice it and choose silence instead. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself to someone who is never going to listen, let it go. This is not about becoming cold. It is about finally deciding where your energy is allowed to go. And once you make that decision consistently, you will notice something happening around you. People will start treating you differently, not because you demanded respect, but because you stopped begging for it without realizing that is what you were doing all along. Machiavelli never wrote these laws down as kindness. He wrote them as survival. But the survival he was describing is the same one you are looking for right now. The ability to move through a world full of noise without losing a single piece of yourself to it. That is not cruelty. That is simply what it looks like to finally be in control of your own life, instead of reacting to everyone else's. If this gave you a different way of seeing your own power, stay around, because this channel is built entirely on ideas like this one.